Narrow alley in Hanoi. The night was late, and the sky was pitch black. Dim streetlights cast eerie shadows on the ancient banyan trees lining the road. Exhausted after a long day's work, I still had deliveries ahead of me. As I passed an old house, I noticed flames erupting from its ground floor. The fire consumed the entire building, sending billowing black smoke into the air. Even from a distance, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the horrifying scene. Desperate cries echoed from inside the house. Residents were trying to escape. Some leaped onto the corrugated iron roof of the neighboring house, while others scrambled up to the upper floors. They struggled to open doors, but the fire had engulfed everything. I dialed the emergency line for the fire department. They arrived swiftly, but rescue efforts were challenging. The house was deep within the alley, so the fire trucks parked on the main road, and firefighters used ropes to access the scene. Police officers and rescue teams searched with flashlights in the darkness. The flames raged, and I felt the pressure and difficulty of their rescue mission. I could only stand there, witnessing the terrifying spectacle. By early morning, the fire was finally under control, and rescuers brought out several unfortunate victims. That house had transformed into a gruesome crime scene. Those trapped inside, their lives claimed by the inferno, became tormented souls. I can't forget that haunting sight, and ever since, I've been haunted by the burned house. Horror story: the shadow on the dark road. On a desolate, dimly lit road, where streetlights failed to penetrate far enough, I walked alone. The wind whispered through the trees, sending shivers down my spine. Everything around me grew eerily quiet, except for the echo of my footsteps on the pavement. Whether by chance or fate, I glimpsed a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was elusive, yet discernible enough for me to recognize it as a woman. She wore a flowing white dye, her long hair obscuring her face. What chilled me to the bone was the absence of features, just an inky black veil where her face should be. I tried to sidestep her, but no matter which direction I moved, the shadow reappeared before me. She remained silent, her eyes as deep and dark as the abyss. I felt the frigid aura emanating from her, freezing me in place. Summoning courage, I confronted the apparition. "Who are you?" My voice trembled. The shadow didn't reply. Instead, she emitted a bone-chilling laugh. The sound echoed through the night, trapping me in an otherworldly realm. Escape seemed impossible. Then, the shadow drew closer. I glimpsed her pitch-black eyes within the veil. "Mortal," she spoke, her voice icy. "You've arrived at the right place." I couldn't fathom what was happening. "How can I assist you?" I stammered. Her name, she revealed, was Mai, a woman who vanished on this very road a decade ago. "I seek answers," she said, her laughter now haunting. I couldn't refuse. Together, we treaded the dark path, the night's chill enveloping us. Whether I could help Mai find her lost soul remained uncertain, but at least I was no longer alone in this eerie journey. The shadow in the mirror. I rented a small apartment in Hanoi, where I lived alone. The apartment had a large mirror placed right in front of the bed. During the day, it was an ordinary mirror, but at night, it transformed into something eerie. Every time I looked into the mirror, I saw a shadow standing behind me. It lacked a distinct form, merely a dense black mass, like a pocket of darkness within the room. I sensed its presence, even though I couldn't see it with my naked eyes. I tried placing a nightlight next to the mirror, but the shadow persisted. I even covered the mirror with a cloth, but when I pulled it away, the shadow reappeared. It always stood behind me, like a strange guardian. I dared not speak to anyone about this, fearing they'd think I was crazy. I researched the apartment, but there was no information related to this mirror. I tried to live normally, but every night, the shadow remained, like an unhappy soul. I didn't know who or what that shadow was, where it came from, or why it always appeared in the mirror. But I no longer dared to look into the mirror at night. The hidden soul had turned my apartment into a haunting place, and I couldn't escape its presence. The eerie tale of my grandfather and the ink-black dog. In the old days, my grandfather's house was known as Songdu, the Red Gate. It stood near a crossroads, which today corresponds to the intersection of Jungminkwang and Tranhung Dao streets. My grandfather worked as a rice harvester and often rested in the rice fields near the Ton Duc Tang Cemetery. One fateful day, as my grandfather lay in his hammock, a mysterious ink-black dog appeared. The dog kept its distance, about 10 paces away, neither barking nor making any noise. When my grandfather approached, it retreated. When he moved away, the dog followed, maintaining that same 10 paces distance. Every night, the dog materialized and sat silently, observing my grandfather as he slept. Just before dawn, it would leap across the nearby embankment and vanish. My grandfather shared this strange encounter with the homeowner, who revealed that the dog had passed away 2 or 3 months earlier. While alive, it had been an excellent guard dog. On the day it died, it sought refuge in a nearby thatched hut when it heard gunshots. Curiously, a stray bullet pierced the hut, ending the dog's life. Other neighbors also reported seeing the ink-black dog darting across the fields. Whenever it encountered strangers, it would pause, gaze momentarily, then continue on its way. Determined to honor the spirit of the dog, my grandfather performed a ritual at the spot where it had appeared. Afterward, the dog ceased its nightly visits. However, one ominous night, my grandfather felt 2 unseen figures pressing down on him. One held his legs, the other his arms. He struggled to open his eyes but couldn't. Desperate, he reached for the knife under his pillow and slashed blindly. The 2 shadowy forms vanished. Gasping, he uttered, "If you have divine powers, stay here and guard my rice fields. I am grateful." Trembling, he retreated home, his skin crawling with fear. This eerie phenomenon is often attributed to Bongda, night hag, encounters. Yet, from a scientific perspective, it remains a curious tale of my grandfather and the ink-black dog, my grandfather's ghostly visitor. Allow me to share a chilling tale about my grandfather and a ghost that haunted our family home's basement. This story has been passed down through generations, and it still sends shivers down my spine. Our house, known as the Red Gate, had a large red gate near the intersection, Naojung Minkwang and Tranhung Dao streets. My grandfather often worked in the rice fields and spent nights guarding the crops near the cemetery on Ton Duc Tang Street, close to what is now Lang Xie Pagoda. One day, while my grandfather was resting in his hammock, a mysterious black dog appeared. The dog stood about 10 paces away, silently observing him without barking or making any noise. Whenever my grandfather approached, the dog would retreat. When he moved away, the dog followed, maintaining the same distance. Every night, the dog would appear and watch my grandfather sleep. As dawn approached, it would leap across the embankment to the adjacent rice field and vanish. My grandfather had no idea where this dog came from. The homeowner mentioned that the dog had passed away 2 or 3 months earlier. When alive, it was an excellent guard dog. Neighbors also witnessed the dog running through the fields, disappearing into the distance. When encountering strangers, it would pause, stare, and then continue on its way. My grandfather decided to offer a ritual for the dog, and afterward, it never appeared again. However, one night, my grandfather felt a heavy weight pressing down on him. He couldn't open his eyes but sensed 2 figures holding his arms and legs. He reached for a knife under his pillow and swung blindly, but the shadows vanished. My grandfather said, "If you have divine powers, please stay here and guard my crops. I am grateful." After that, he returned home. The mysterious dog never reappeared. This story remains etched in my memory, and I'll never forget those eerie and inexplicable events. My grandfather had encountered something otherworldly, and this tale is part of our family's haunting memories.